Hello everybody and welcome back to the video. Today we're going to be talking about nomad civilizations and we're going to make a tier list out of it. So this is going to be the best civilizations on nomad maps and that means maps that you don't start with a town center. But I'm going to be mainly focusing on my tier list on the classical nomad map, which I think is the most popular and which you all can play on the ranked ladder as well. But keep in mind this list will be fairly accurate to most maps they don't start with a town center on, and the biggest difference is whether there's water on that map or not. So this will apply to a lot of different starts where you have no town center, of course, but once again, based on classical nomad. I figured it's a good time because Wandering Warriors Cup just ended, which is a $25,000 nomad-based tournament. So it's a good time to let you guys know what I think are the best civilizations and what the pros thought as well, with based on how they picked the civilizations out as well. This list would be good for both 1v1s and team games. So feel free to use the list and refer to it for either or, depending on what you're actually playing. I was really nervous, by the way, because there's no names of the civilization. This has all 39 civilizations. There's no names under them. So I did my research. I think I know all the civilization icons now. And I have a cheat sheet on the side in case I mess up one of them. I can look over and help myself out. But without further ado, let's hop into it. Starting off with the Aztecs. Now, the Aztecs are a pretty mediocre civ when you consider them on Nomad. However, because they're a really strong civ in general, they tend to do quite well on Nomad as well. Some of the benefits to specifically Nomad is that they have a nice grush where they have faster working docks because of their military bonus. Which is a nice thing to go for, a nice little grush and contest the fish. They also have really good monks in general, which can be really good for the monk pushes in castle. And aside from that, they have really good crossbow, eagle play, and just general spam. Aztecs find themselves at a cool B tier, nothing too special. Their late game kind of lacks in terms of bombard cannons and beefy castles. They don't get any techs to make their castles have more HP, which is actually quite relevant on Nomad because there's a lot of stone available, especially in team games. But you're looking at a pretty mediocre civ on Aztecs. Next up, we've got the Berbers, and I would say Berbers are a pretty above average civilization, simply because they have a few options in Castlage that really let them explode. They've got the cheaper knights that you can really spam out, and they've also got the Camel Archer, which is a very strong unique unit. So combine those two, as well as the fact that on Nomad, you can usually get away with a quick, fast castle. And the reason you can get away with a fast castle on Nomad style maps is because you start off very slow by building a town center, but you quickly ramp it up because you've got a town center working, usually a dock working as well. And you'll find that by the time you get to Feudal Age, because you had that really slow start, you're going to have more villagers available or more resources available, I should say, villagers, fishing boats, resources banked up, than a standard 1v1 Arabia, for example. So you can typically get to Castlage much quicker. Even if you decide to fight for water or make a few Feudal Age units, you have enough banked up to get a pretty quick castle time. So because of this, Berbers, with their strong Castlage spike, ends up being an A tier civ. This is going to be a theme that recurs a lot. Civs that have really strong Castlage spikes do really well in Nomad, generally speaking. Next up, we've got the Bohemians. I actually looked this one up, so I'm pretty confident in it. Bohemians are an interesting one. I honestly think they're not that strong, but not that weak either. They have a decent Castlage spike, but the civilization is a bit weird. Unique units, okay in certain cases, but not that crazy. Chemistry crossbows is nice. They have decent monk siege play, of course. Cheaper university, cheaper monastery. I would say overall, B tier makes sense. Next up, we've got the Britons. Now, Britons is one of the civilizations that also has a nice Castlage spike, but keep in mind, you don't actually benefit from too many bonuses in the early game. Sheep is also not very big on Nomad, so Britons find themselves at a cool B tier as well. They're quite strong in certain cases, and I think they can control the map nicely with their extra range. Also, going crossbows with Britons is pretty good because although other civilizations might want to go for siege pushes or unique units in Castlage, the Briton crossbow is the exception to the rule that crossbows are usually bad on Nomad. Because of that extra range, it really helps you out and not let you die to those big pushes. Next up, we've got the Bulgarians. And for me, Bulgarians are only thriving on Nomad when it becomes a messy game, which tends to happen quite often, don't get me wrong, because the Krepos really lets them control the map at a cheap cost. So I would say Bulgarians are a decent B tier civ as well. A lot of these early civs going into the B tier, but that really is just a fact. They're good in some cases and bad in the other ones. Nothing too special. Next up, we've got the Burgundians, and this is, I think, our first C tier civilization. Honestly, the civ doesn't really offer that many special options on Nomad. I can't think of any play I'd want to go with with Burgundians that I can't do with another civilization. The Cavalier spike really isn't that impressive because it takes too long to get out. Their cheap eco upgrades doesn't really come into play because you're usually not getting the farm upgrades too early on Nomad style maps. So Burgundians is really a civilization that doesn't really thrive too well on Nomad. Not saying they can't have any success, they have a really good late game still, but it's not my go-to civilization. Although I will say that Couturier are probably the best choice if you need a raiding or mobile cavalry unit, because Couturier are pretty sick units, and Nomad lets you get those castle drops quite easily if you have stone nearby. Next up, we've got the Burmese. Burmese is like almost really good, but kind of falls flat. I'll tell you why. They're around by, and like in general, they have a really good early game economy. Listen, you get free wood upgrade, which means that, actually in Nomad, you don't need to make the lumber camp, because you can make a dock and then just a mill. Then you can go up and go blacksmith market. You don't need to make a lumber camp because you get the eco upgrade for free. So assuming you have a good spot with your town center on wood, you don't need to make a lumber camp, and that's a big saving for the early game with Burmese. So they have a smooth start, but once you get to Castle Age, like you can go like Arambai or like Siege Monk. They have a few decent options, but they fall off so hard. I mean, their late game is like Siege, Monk, Infantry. Arambai are like okay. It's just a very awkward civilization to play. So I think they're like very close to being like S-tier overpowered, like really strong, but the Arambai just aren't that strong because they got a pretty big nerf. I'm debating between B tier and A tier. I'm gonna put them in A tier. No, I think I'm going to keep them in B tier. I would say they're probably top of B tier, although I'm not doing that for this tier list. But I think they're probably like top of B tier, but I can't justify putting them A tier. They sound better than they actually are, in my opinion. Next up, we've got the Byzantine. Now, Byzantine is a civilization that really, it thrives when it can go for a fast imp. But I think it struggles when there's a lot of fighting in the early game. That being said, Nomad is a map that doesn't really have a lot of early game fighting, and you can usually get a nice, cool, fast castle, and Byzantines tend to come alive in Castle Age onwards. And I also think free town patrol is really, really nice on Nomad style maps because you don't know what's around you, so getting that nice vision down is quite cool. I would say Byzantine are looking like a very good A tier. Keep in mind you can fight for the water really efficiently because you've got their cheaper fire ships, so I would say they're a pretty solid A tier civilization. Next up, we've got the Celts, and Celts is really a civilization that I don't like to play on Nomad. I don't like it in general, but I feel like their strengths are much better used on Arabia because their men-at-arm aggression followed by their siege pushes can be deadly. But on Nomad, you kind of missed a lot of those timings. You're forced to fight on water, which is not bad for Celts. They can do that, but it kind of just throws off the timing of the siege push a little bit. If you decide to ignore water and go straight for that siege push, you might just die to someone going for a fast castle unique unit play as well. So like Celts just kind of die to a lot of the meta on Nomad, and that's why, for that reason, I'm going to put them on C tier. It's even worse in team games where you just find that you don't have an army to go for. They're super late game when they get to SO, and like Siege Ram, Woad Raiders is very good, but until then, they don't have a lot of options besides maybe a Castle Age siege push that they can go for. Next up, we've got the Chinese, and this is my first D tier civilization. I'm not 100% sure how bad the start is right now, but from my limited experience in playing the Civ after it's been changed on Nomad, it used to be the best Civ, and now it just kind of feels like one of the worst Civs to play. It's very slow to start. You generally just fall behind just from the start, and in general, Chinese are not a very good Nomad Civ in general because unique unit's not that impressive early game. You don't have the best late game. You don't have bombard cannon available to you. Your monks aren't anything special. So you're forced to play like mainly land units like Arbalest, Light Cav, Cavalier. So you're still flexible, but the options really just aren't that powerful. So bad start combined with like bad options leaves them at a cool D tier, or pretty bad D tier. Next up, we've got the Cumans, and Cumans are simply nothing special. I can't think of any bonus, again, that I'd want to make use of, and for that reason, I'm going to go straight to C tier. Correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but like even Kipchucks are just not the most impressive unit, so can't really think of anything I'd want to do with Cumans on Nomad. 2TC Boom is simply just not a good strategy here. Next up, I'm going to cheat for this one, is the Ethiopians. Yes, the Ethiopians. I didn't recognize the flag for a second. Ethiopians are interesting. I'm going to honestly just throw them in B tier. I think they have some decent options in terms of getting up to Castle Age quite fast because they get the free resources in Feudal Age. And then they have a solid Castle Age spike, which is quite good on Nomad. Their crossbows are decent, but again, they kind of die to big siege pushes in general, so you have to be careful with that. And in general, they don't have the best Castle Age because they have no eco bonus past the initial drop off of 100 food, 100 gold per age, which is nice for power spikes, but bad for consistent fighting in Castle Age. So it's something you have to be careful of. Try to use their power spike if you want to play Ethiopians. The late game is not bad though with the siege, so they have some options late game, but really their Castle Age power spike is probably their best friend there. Okay, the Franks. Franks are a civilization that kind of don't really mesh well with what Nomad likes to do. But I will say the one thing that really stands out for me when I play Franks is their cheaper castles. I think their cheaper castles can come up huge and can be really the difference between winning and losing a game at some point. So I would say Franks are another B tier civilization. Again, they're nothing special, but they're a good civ in general. I will say you don't get a chance to really use their berry bonus. Also, their farm bonus with getting the free upgrades is not bad for late game, but nothing too special early game, because usually you're relying on the fish or the natural hunt resources. But yeah, as the game goes on, the cheaper castles is very nice. The farm bonus kicks in, and it's a smooth civilization. Next up, we've got the Goths. I recognize it quite nicely. It's a bad civilization, guys. C tier for the Goths. They don't really get anything special on Nomad. Going for Husk Scrolls sounds like a good idea, but if you think about it, Husk Scrolls kind of die to everything in Nomad because they die to a lot of unique units, which is a very easy option to go for in most cases. Goths will most likely lose the water because your early game isn't really anything special. You don't have any solid eco bonus for it. Getting Loom for free or instant doesn't actually matter because a lot of other civilizations can easily skip Noom on Nomad because of how little early game aggression there is. If you haven't watched my video on why I think Loom is the worst upgrade in the game, highly recommend you check that out on my channel. But yeah, Goths are nothing special, and I think they're much better off on land maps like Arabia than they are on Nomad. Next up, we've got the Huns. Say hello to our second tier civilization. It's once again because of their starts. Huns can't make a dock early. They have to chop a lot of wood first before they can make a dock, which is terrible because when you start, normally you send 2 villagers to make your town center, 1 villager to make a dock, and then take fish. Now with Huns, you can't do that because you don't actually have enough resources for the dock right away. So you're forced to bring all 3 villagers together, make the town center, and then chop a lot of wood, and then walk all the way back to a lake to then make a dock. It's so tedious, it's so slow, and just skipping the dock altogether, not making a single fishing ship early game just feels like you'll fall too far behind, and it's going to be an uphill battle. So I'm not a fan of that. D tier for sure. Next up, we've got the Incas here. Incas remind me a little bit of Aztecs in the sense that they got nothing special, but I would say that Aztecs at least have the monks going for them, whereas Incas, I can't really think of anything too crazy that they have. Kamyks are good for mid to late game, but nothing too much in the early castlage. So definitely going to be a C tier for the Incas as well. Next up, we've got the Indians as well, and Indians have some interesting bonuses. The fastest shorefish gather rates is not bad because you have at least 1 villager on shorefish in a standard nomad game. They also have cheaper villagers, which is a nice eco bonus. So right away, you're looking at like a double eco bonus early game, however small they might be, but it's still something. I would say they're a B tier civilization. Listen, nothing crazy, good economy, decent units, but no big power spike that you're looking for. Next up, we've got the Italians, and Italians might be looking at another A tier spot here, guys. Double checks that it's Italians first. It is. Yeah, the Italians are very solid on Nomad because of the fact that if there's ever any water fights, the Italians will be really quick to get that water play down. They can win the water for the whole team. If it's a 1v1, usually get a better grush than your opponent. If it comes to land play, they have a really good options to get like a faster imp. They can easily go for the Genoese crossbow versus the cavalry civs. They have solid options in general. I don't know. It's just a solid civilization, very well-rounded, and really shines on water maps. So Nomad, it's no different there. Next up, we've got the Japanese. This is a civilization that loses a lot of its power on the land, but since it has some water bonuses, actually ends up performing quite well. But I would say that its late game is very, very bad on Nomad style maps in general because you're lacking bombard cannons and you're lacking that heavy siege. However, you could make up with it. You could make up for that using the Asama towers to gain control of the land. We saw Yo do this against me, and you can use the monks to counter bombard cannons. Granted, I did make a few lots of mistakes in that game, but Asama towers can be very, very deadly to play against and very tricky to take down as well. I would put Japanese in a nice B tier. Not the worst civ, not the best civ, but they have some cool bonuses like the faster fishing ships early game that can really propel them into that mid game. And the cheaper buildings as well is not bad, like lumber camps and mills, because sometimes you need a fair few of them on Nomad. So yeah, Japanese are not bad. Next up, we've got the Khmer. Khmer are interesting because you don't need to make buildings to age up. So you actually can skip the lumber camp, kind of like Burmese, but you can also skip the market and blacksmith. So it's pretty cool. You don't need a mill, you don't need a market. But Khmer doesn't really offer anything that special. Scorpions are nice in castlage. Late game is so and so. Could go your way, could not. I don't know. I think Khmer are not bad. I would put them at B tier. You don't get to make use of their farming as much as you would on a land map, but their early game is smooth enough that I think it's not bad. And once you do get to castlage, you can go for a nice boom and start making use of your farming bonuses then. Next up, we've got the Koreans. Koreans are going to be another A tier civilization, guys. War wagons are a beastly unit. They also have cheaper wood units, so that comes into play if there's a Grush war, if there's water fights. They also have really nice towers that can be good to take control of the map. Good late game too. Solid 8 tier civ. Next up, we've got the Lithuanians. That's going to be maybe the first of our S-tier civilizations. Yeah, I'm going to put it at S-tier, guys. The 150 free food at the start is absolutely massive for Lithuanians. It lets them get a faster feudal age than most civilizations, lets them win the water almost instantly, and it's very hard to play against. And once they do win the water, how they can pressure after that is crazy. They can go for some crazy monk pushes in Castle Age, pick up the relics and go for some knights, and their late game is fantastic as well. If it gets to trash war, they've got the best trash, available, or at least some of the best trash available. I'm not going to make a statement like that around here. But, if they got some of the best trash available, and in general, a very solid late game. Next up, we've got the Magyars, and this is a civilization that really doesn't thrive at all on Nomad. They don't have a single bonus that I would say this is a great civilization to go with. I need the Magyars for this game plan and for the strategy. Nothing like that. For me, it's a C tier civilization, maybe even a D tier civilization. I'm only not putting them D tier because the Huns are literally unplayable. They're so bad, and same with the Chinese. Huns is definitely the worst though. So Magyars, I would say a C tier makes sense for me. Next up, we've got the Malay. Ooh, Malay is interesting. I would probably put the Civ at high B tier, maybe A tier. I kind of like the Malay. I think they have some cool options. I also like that their fish traps are very good if you do win the water. I'm gonna put them at B tier just because I feel like their late game isn't as good as it could be, or other Civs have it on Nomad games. So especially in team games, Malay kind of falls off a little bit. But they have a nice start and they have a nice progression through the ages as well. Extra line of sight on the dock is nice to find the fish as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's not a bad civilization. I put it at B tier for sure. Good aging up through the ages as well. Saves a lot of time. Fast in potential, all that stuff. Next up is Malians, and Malians is going to be another S tier civilization. It might sound very weird, but Malians are actually a fantastic civilization. Let me tell you why here. Malians are one of the few civilizations that can make a fishing ship right away before you get your town center up. Because of their wood saving bonus, you save wood on the initial town center, you save wood on the initial dock, and on the initial house, which lets you make a fishing ship right off the bat. One of the few civs that can do it straight to S tier, pretty much only because of that. That, a free fishing ship out before the game even starts, plus they have a double eco bonus after that, which is the free gold mining upgrade. Oh no, they changed that. Hold on, no, they only have one eco bonus after that. I forgot they changed it. But they have the wood savings after that and the longer lasting gold. I guess it's just an eco upgrade, I guess. But yeah, longer lasting gold. So, that's actually a pretty good bonus on Nomad if there's a lot of gold around. So I would say Malians, mainly S tier for the start, but even after that, they're a solid civilization. Next up, we've got the Mayans. Mayans are another civilization that are quite like the Italians. I'm going to put them at A tier. They're really well-rounded, or I would say they resemble a little bit more actually like maybe the Berbers or the Koreans, because they've got a really good castage spike. They could play the water just fine. They have a good economy. The resources last longer is huge on Nomad, because if you get access to 1 or 2 gold piles, it's massive. It lasts so long. Same thing with stone piles. Plumes is a great unit. Eagle power spike is solid. Biggest weakness is the siege late game, so keep that in mind. Next up, we've got the Mongols. And Mongols is a civilization that is going to find itself in the A tier as well. Great early game with the faster hunt. Can get some really good uptimes like the Lithuanians that you can go for a Gallia rush with. But then you also have access to Mangudai, which are very solid. So for me, Mongols in A tier makes a lot of sense. And I'm actually thinking of dropping the Lithuanians a little bit to A tier, by the way. I realized that the S tier civs that have lined up are better than Lithuanians, quite consistently. So I'm gonna change that. I want to put Lithuanians to A tier. This is why it's important that you watch the video and not just skip through it, because you'll miss some of my thought process when it comes to comparing the civilizations. And I consider Lithuanians and Mongols to be quite similar in what they do: win water fast and then try to end the game or get a lead after that. And they both do it at a similar level. Next up, I believe, is the Persians. Yeah, the Persians, and that's going to be another S-tier civilization. Same thing as the Malians. They get the fishing ship early. They have a great economy. Actually, one thing is worth mentioning, your extra HP town center is very good, because if they try to siege push you, it's going to be twice as hard to take down your town centers, and siege pushes is quite a common strategy on Nomad in certain cases. So yeah, Persians are excellent at defending that. Winning water is easy with Persians. They have a really good play on land after that with crossbows, knights, and siege. So you really can't go wrong with the Civ. It's the ultimate snowball-y Nomad civilization. Next up is the Poles. I did my research. This is the Poles. Listen, Poles, nothing too special on Nomad, but I will say the one bonus that can be kind of maximized on Nomad is the fact that they can mine They can mine stone and get gold. This is absolutely massive. There's some big stone piles on Nomad and quite a lot of them, so you can really abuse this bonus. And for that reason, I put them at a high B tier. I think that makes sense. High B tier, maybe even A tier because of that bonus. I'm debating actually whether I put them in B or A tier. Their farm bonus is not bad in the mid game as well. I would say low A tier for Poles. They seem better than a lot of the civs that have lined up at B tier. So I'm going to put them at a low A tier. They're solid civilization, but not one of my go-tos, but definitely worth checking out. Next up, we've got the Portuguese, I believe. Yes, indeed. Portuguese is another A-tier civilization because it has fantastic water play. It has a really good unique unit with the Oregon guns, and in general has really solid Imperial Age options as well with cheap monks, siege, and you can go for those arbalest as well. So quite a lot of options for the Portuguese, and I think combining that with a really good water play makes them an A-tier civilization. Also in team games, cartography or like free allied vision from early game from Dark Age is absolutely massive on Nomad, although it makes the start extremely annoying. Comment Portuguese in the chat, or in the comment, not in the chat, I'm not streaming. Comment Portuguese in the comment section below if you're annoyed at the Portuguese start in team games on Nomad. Just comment Portuguese, I'll know what's up, and I'll heart your comments, because that's how we do things around here on YouTube. And I want to see who's actually watching the whole video, not skimming through on these tier lists. Next up, we've got the Saracens. Saracens are an interesting civilization. They have some cool plays, but I think their cool plays kind of falls flat versus a lot of the top civs. And I'm talking about the market plays, like making a market early, using that to go up quickly to the castle age, and then making some plays happen from there. It's not bad. I can't see it being more than B tier though for the Saracens. I mean, it's not bad. The B tier is very populated here, but I can't see the Saracens being higher than a B tier, to be honest. Next up, we've got the Sicilians. Below average civ. You don't get, like, they used to be insane on Nomad, but the first town center no longer benefits from their faster building. So aside from that, the Sicilians only get like faster building town centers in Castle Age, faster building castles, which is not bad. The extra 100 stone is not bad in certain cases as well, but your unique unit's not very good early game. It's good late game, but you know, it's hard to get there in a lot of cases. I don't know. Sicilian feels very average on Nomad. Also, their farming bonus is really hard to get to as well because, like I said, usually rely on the fish for the early game. Next up, we've got the Slavs, and another civ that benefits from farming bonuses. It's not going to work too well. For me, Slavs is probably going to find itself at a B tier. Yeah, C tier even. Yeah, maybe high C tier, low B tier. Just nothing special about it. Reminds me of Magyars, where it just does nothing better than other civs. Siege push is like the only thing that can use this bonuses with, but it's hard to farm a lot on Nomad as well, so that bonus isn't being used too much. So Slavs, C tier at best. Next up, we've got the Spanish. That's another S-tier civilization, and let me tell you why. You essentially get a free villager just from playing the game with Spanish because you build the town center faster than your opponent. So if you just drop it at the same time as your opponents, you're building it with 2 villagers each, but Spanish will build it faster by around 20 seconds or 25 seconds, which nets you a free villager, which is absolutely massive. So combining that with the fact that you have conquistadors available in Castle Age makes it an absolute powerhouse, maybe considered one of the best civilizations on Nomad. In fact, the best civilization on Nomad by many. I would say it's definitely top 3. Feel free to let me know in the comments once again with the Spanish, whether it's the best or simply just a top 3 civ, comparing it to to Malians and Persians. Next up, we've got the Tatars, and Tatars have nothing special on Nomad. The Castle spike with the free thumb ring is not bad. Kashik is an okay option in certain cases, but aside from that, you don't really get too much going for you. The sheep bonus is pretty much non-existent since you're not relying on sheep in early game. So I'm going to put them at the C tier, maybe B tier if you're feeling generous, but yeah, nothing too special with the Tatars. Next up, we've got the Teutons. C tier, man. You can't use the farming bonus. Nothing else is special. Again, nothing special for these civs on Nomad, so can't get them higher than C tier. Next up, we got the Turks, though. Turks are not bad. Listen, depending on how high you value Janissaries or a fast imp, Turks can be either B tier or A tier. I'm going to put them at B tier. I think Janissaries are really, really powerful. Janissary Siege. So if you value that high, that's an easy A tier. I just think that other civilizations do it better. You know what? Let's put it A tier. Janissary Siege is a powerful strategy, and Turks do that really well in Nomad. So you know, it's definitely, you know, I can see Turks performing quite well, despite it not being the most popular civ amongst pros, because other civs do what Turks do but better, like Portuguese, but it has that water play as well. So Turks would be like low A tier, maybe high B tier instead. I'll leave them in the A tier just to give them some love though. I know the Turkish community is very, very enthusiastic in AoE2, and they're an awesome community, so I'll hook you guys up, give your civilization a little love. Next up, we got the Vietnamese. I think B tier makes sense. A solid B tier. Yeah, a solid B tier. Rathan archers are not bad. Your early game's not bad. You save on the eco upgrades, but you only get the double bit axe. You don't get the horse collar in most cases early. Yeah, B tier makes sense. Nothing too special about it once again. And then last but not least, we got the Vikings. Listen, free handcart's nice, but the new thumb rings without the thumb ring, the new Vikings without the thumb ring. That's what I meant to say. Nothing that special in late game. You're kind of forced to make that infantry switch, so you're forced to fight a lot in Castle Age basically to secure the ground. They also have a good water rush though. I don't know. I can see Vikings being B or A tier depending on the situation. I'm gonna leave them B tier though because I feel like they are kind of weak to unique units strategies. And if they have to fight in close quarters water, they don't have the fire galley available to them, so they can just die out in some cases, even though they're supposed to be a very good water civilization. Alright guys, that's my 1v1 and team game nomad style maps or nomad tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you agree with my list, if you disagree, I'm pretty happy looking at it right now. Have a nice symmetry with having the same amount of civs in A tier as well in C tier. Very few in D and S and many in B tier. So I'm quite happy with it. It makes a lot of sense to me. Let me know in the comments once again. Thanks for watching the video and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.